Today I thought I'd do a review of some vintage watch steel bracelets from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, while the bracelet manufacturers and types from these time periods aren't nearly as popular as the watch manufacturers, you have to admit that a lot of these vintage bracelets are going up in value. And a lot of times they're going up in value because people who have a vested interest in it are pushing them. And some people sort of have the market cornered for certain types or brands like NSA, but that's a little further than I want to go with that. So instead, I just want to do a brief overview going through some of the better known manufacturers and some of the different types you will encounter if you happen to be interested in collecting watches of that time period. I'll start with my favorite, and that's the NSA bracelet. It's there are different versions of it, and I'll show you the two main ones. As you'll notice, the main differentiating feature on this is that it has multiple teeth or components here, and there are different versions that have more or less. This I believe is 7, but they're held in place with pins like this, and knock on wood, I've never had any issue of anything falling out. It's always been really sturdy and pretty easy to adjust. You could use a standard tool in my experience. They come in different widths. This is a 20mm width. In this particular case, it has a custom end link, but you can also replace this with a flat one. So very versatile, assuming you have all of the parts. It's a little bit, the edges are, I wouldn't call them sharp, but this is definitely not a bracelet I'd recommend wearing tight, because that might definitely dig into your skin. And I think a way of avoiding that is a built-in little mechanism. But before I get into that, I just want to show the mechanism. First of all, this is the logo, and the mechanism on this is a basic clasp, where you pry it open with your nail, and you pull it out. And you look at that and you think, well, there's really no room for adjustment. Well, first of all, you have the links are pretty narrow, so you have that. And you have a secret little built-in feature. There's a spring inside of here. And this is, I really need to disassemble this and oil it up, grease it up a little bit. But basically, normally this works. You can, this has give like this because of the spring inside. So if you're wearing it and you flex your wrist, the bracelet opens up like that, and it makes it very comfortable. I love it. The logo's on the inside, and this is typically a sign of a higher quality bracelet from the time period. The stamping is really, really nicely done. You'll typically see Swiss made, and again, the NSA logo. And again, all of these parts are modular. You can remove them, and again, assuming you have different parts, you can replace them. So this is the first type of bracelet, and again, the main point here is it's a clasp. So while you do have the spring, adjustment is minimal. Second type is what you have here on this JLC memo box. And here, you don't have nearly as many links on the width scale, but if you look at the side profile, it's exactly the same. So adjustment is exactly the same by removing the pins. The only difference here is you have a more traditional clasp. Some of them will have a logo. Sometimes if someone's dealing, I guess depending on the brand, there may not necessarily be a logo. And clasp pops open like that. And still in Swiss made NSA logo. Again, on the higher end ones, the stamping is going to be much nicer. And later in my little video, I'll show you lower quality versions. This also has a spring-loaded clasp. It goes like this. And you get a lot more room to play with. From this perspective, this type of NSA bracelet isn't as fancy as the multi-link one here, but they both serve the same function. And in my experience, they really, I would describe them as jewel-like. Obviously, if you have a bigger watch like this diver case from the 70s versus a smaller case like this, here it just works proportionally, but here I think it really helps take this large case and really tame it and make it much more wearable on your wrist. And it really makes the watch feel jewel-like, in my opinion. These, again, this is 18 millimeters, and again, this has a fitted in link, but again, they come with straight ones too. This is 18, this is 20. They also came in 22. Probably the most famous is for the Hoyer Monaco, I believe. And again, the individual who sort of cornered the market charges a fortune for them. But you can still find NSAs. Getting them cheap is not nearly as easy, but it's possible. You just have to keep an eye out. And obviously, the wider you go, like from 20 to 22, the more difficult it will be to get a cheap price on it. But if you're patient, I do believe they're out there. Again, I think these are just wonderful, elegant, jewel-like designs, and they really make the watch look a lot better.